Ever wondered what makes a French woman French? A certain je ne sais quoi? And a lot more. Follow in the footsteps of storyteller Edith de Belleville, a native Parisian who brings to life the hidden histories of the great women who shaped and influenced the France we know today. In each part of this radio series, Edith will take you to a different arrondissement of Paris with plenty of anecdotes and secrets to share. Ooh la la, mais oui. Episode number 1, Simone de Beauvoir, Café de Flore, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, in the 6th arrondissement of Paris.
1908. She's the, let's say, very famous feminist. She wrote the Bible of the feminism. It's called the Bible, The Second Sex. And she wrote a very famous sentence in the beginning of her book.
One is not born a woman, one becomes a woman.
Absolutely. So this idea is, she wrote a book it was a big scandal in 1949, can you imagine, after the war, before the women's league, the movement in the 60s in the United States or in Europe. She wrote about women and how women had to be free, how she had to live a life, and she wrote about sexuality of the woman. So she wrote about it was extremely taboo, and about abortion, which was a taboo, the fact that she didn't want kids, the fact that a woman had to be free and to work, not walk, and it's my English, and so very important. But if you want to understand the concept, the philosophic concept, you have to know about what is existentialism. Once when I was doing a guided tour about Simone, because we have to say we're in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, the district of the intellectuals, a Swedish girl told me, can you sum up the existentialism in 5 minutes? Yes, I laughed.
Good luck.
Yes, I tried the L'être et le néant in English. So, okay, to explain it briefly. The concept comes from Jean-Paul Sartre. Simone de Beauvoir belongs to the mythical couple of Jean-Paul Sartre, the philosopher that everybody knows all around the world. Let's say that they were the Bonnie and Clyde of the philosophy. Very modern, the mythical couple who were never married, free love, which was extremely modern. So about the concept of philosophy, the existentialism, the idea is you are what you do. It's the action. Because when you're religious, when you're very religious, you think, okay, whatever I will do, my life is already written. You know, that we call determinism. So it's like this, I cannot change it. But for Jean-Paul Sartre, who doesn't believe in God, he says it's not true. You are what you do. What is important, it's the acting. Not you can do anything you want. For example, who cares? You're a woman, you're Australian. If you want, you can be a French teacher in La Sorbonne, even if you're Australian. You can be a great journalist. You can do whatever you want. You decide. That's why existentialism, you have the word existence, because this is your existence. What we will remember about you, what you did, not what you thought. It's the concept of freedom, which is extremely exciting for all women, because you have to think, who cares I'm a woman, who cares I'm poor, who cares I have no degree? I can build my life, you know, I can motivate, I have a high motivation. On the other hand, if you fail, it's your fault, you're guilty. If you wanted to be a writer and you've never been a writer, like me, for example, I want to be a writer, I will be guilty, it will be my fault. You can say, oh, I never had luck in my life, I didn't have luck, it's not my fault. It is your fault. So it's the concept of responsibility and the concept of doing a moral action in your life. That's why Sartre and Beauvoir were so involved in politics. All their buddies were Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, they went to China, they were really rock stars. You have to think it was after the Second World War where freedom, the people didn't have freedom, so very important. Maintenant que tu vis à l'autre bout de Paris, quand tu veux changer d'âge, tu t'offres un long voyage. Tu viens me dire bonjour au coin de la rue du Four. Tu viens me visiter à Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Il n'y a plus d'après à Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Plus d'après-demain, plus d'après-midi, il n'y a qu'aujourd'hui quand je te reverrai à Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Ce ne sera plus toi, ce ne sera plus moi, il n'y a plus d'autrefois. We're now in the Café de Flore.
We are in the Café de Flore, which is where Simone used to come with her existentialist buddies.
Absolutely. They came, all the famous writers were coming during the Second World War. In fact, it's not because it was something special café, not at all. It's because before the intellectuals were in Montparnasse. But during the Second World War, the metro station Vavin was closed and you had heat. It was warm in the Café de Flore, and you had the subway, and there were no Germans in this cafe. That's why all the friends were coming. That's all, just because of the heat, which is not very poetical.
And what did Simone used to drink when she came to the Café de Flore?
So what she was drinking, I guess coffee, but the mythical drink for the existentialism, if you want to seem intellectual, you come in Café de Flore and you ask café crème, which was extremely expensive. And if you don't want people to think that you're a tourist, you don't say coffee with milk, café au lait. Nobody asks it. You say café crème. Very important. So I guess she was drinking café crème here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So now, to talk about the great Simone. So she wrote the book which was a bestseller. 20,000 books were sold in 2 weeks in France, 1 million in the United States. And she's really an iconic woman for all women in the world. I met a Norwegian woman who came just to see her grave, because she's buried in the cemetery Montparnasse with Jean-Paul, of course. And when she was buried with a ring. Yes, very important, because we have the image that Simone was. She was an intellectual, very serious, intimidating. But who was her first love, her only love in life?
Aha. And you're going to reveal something about Simone that we might not know, that she was actually a true romantic.
Absolutely. She was like a teenager. And her true love was not the French Jean-Paul Sartre. No, it was a good-looking American man, Nelson Algren, a great, great writer who unfortunately is not very well known. She was saying, I have to explain you how she met Nelson. She went to United States because she was well known. She wrote a book, was The Guest, L'Invité. She went in 1947. I told you that Sartre and Beauvoir never got married. In fact, they almost got married, but not together. Sartre almost got married with Dolores, who was a French woman who was living in the States. And Simone, she almost got married with Nelson, the American. She met in the States. She stayed 36 hours with Nelson Algren. He had no idea who she was. He thought she was a secret agent from the FBI because Algren was more or less communist. So, of course, the American FBI didn't like it very much. And he saw, she's a weirdest woman, but love at first sight. And they fall in love, and we can tell. It's well known that it was really her first passion. If you're interested, there is a very good book. This is all I knew. It was written by the French writer Irène Frein, Beauvoir in Love, and that's why it's so interesting. Because The Second Sex, I told you, it was written in 1949, but when you know a private life, on the same time, you say there's something weird, because she writes on the book, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids, I'm a free woman, and it's very brave. But on the other hand, she almost married a man, Algren, the writer, and she was deeply in love. And you say that, what's strange? Maybe it's a contradiction. And in fact, it's not a contradiction. It shows that that's why she wrote the books. When she went to the States, she had no, how to say, night. I have one common point with Simone de Beauvoir. My English is not so great. I'm sorry. This is what, when she was writing with Nelson Algren, she had problems. So, how to say, Sartre didn't touch her for 12 years. I mean, no sex, nothing with Sartre.
Platonic, I think we call it.
Platonic, yes, it's more poetical. And she said, Simone de Beauvoir, it's very funny, she said, okay, Sartre is a very warm and lively everywhere except in a bed. So she met Nelson Algren, who was extremely tall. Check on Wikipedia, you will see. Tall. That's the stereotype of the American male, you know, the cowboy, but intellectual. It was from Chicago, and they had the first love night. That's the only date I remember. 10 of May 1947, and she was 39 years old, and for first time in her life she had a pleasure, how do you say, you understand what I mean? Okay, sexual pleasure for first time. It gives hope to women. Huh?
And in fact, this inspired her to write some very mushy love letters. Maybe you could quote something that she wrote to Nelson,
yes,
to give an example of this romantic side to Simone de Beauvoir.
Yes, what is funny, I just have to say that he was calling her, when you think the big Simone, baby. And my little frog, this is how he was calling him, the intellectual, and she was calling my crocodile. Okay, so she wrote in English. If you're interested, you have a book, Transatlantic Affair, when you have the love letters. The family of Algren didn't want to publish, but it's the daughter, the adoptive daughter. She did adopt a daughter, Sylvie Le Bon Beauvoir, who translated in French, but she wrote in English. And then your tenderness and friendship were so precious to me that I can still feel warm and happy and harshly grateful when I look at you inside me. I do hope this tenderness and friendship will never, never desert me. As for me, it is baffling to say so, and I feel ashamed, but it's the only true truth. I just love as much as I did when I landed into your disappointed arms. That means with my whole self and all my dirty heart, I cannot do less. But that will not bother you, honey, and don't make writing letters of any kind a duty. Just write when you feel like it, knowing every time it will make me very happy. Well, all words seem silly. You seem so near, so near. Let me come near to you too. And let me, as in the past times, let me be in my own heart forever. Your own Simone.
Certainly a lot of emotion there.
Yeah, but they broke up.
Yes, and Nelson vented his anger through his writings after that.
Yeah, because she did something not very delicate. She used a love affair to write a book, Clément Darin, who won a prize. And she pretended it was something not very important. So when you know it was important, of course, he was very, not shy, but he didn't want to show off, the relationship. So, but Simone always used a life like a real writer to write about it, but she didn't write it through, not very nicely, let's say. So they broke up. I think she chose a career because he wanted Simone for himself, but he didn't speak French. He was living in Chicago, and she didn't speak English so well, and her career was in France. So I think she chose a career. She chose to stay with Sartre, and she was not very happy with him. He had many lovers. He was very macho.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to come back to Jean-Paul Sartre to ask you, although she did not have a sexual relationship with him, there was a lot of sex involved. It just wasn't between them. What were their dirty secrets?
Yes, this is what we knew after when they were dead, because the legend was they were open couple. In fact, She probably, I mean, not probably, it's for sure. I mean, she was bisexual. She always denied. When you read the book, she said, no, it was just friends. But she was a teacher, and she was seducing young students, and she was trying the young student. And after she was giving the young lady to Sartre, a bit a pimp, not very elegant, but. If you're interested about the subject, there is an excellent book written by an Australian writer who passed away, unfortunately, Hazel Rowley, who did a PhD. And the name of the book is Tête à Tête in French. Very interesting, but a bit, sad when you read the reality. It was not very glamorous, let's say. But she's still a modern woman.
How is she still relevant?
I read, I'm intellectual, so I read intellectual newspapers. So I read in Elle magazine that...
That's a joke.
Yes, well. And, Simone, she say why intellectual should be an insult.
Yeah.
And so in the newspaper you had 2 pages about sexuality of women. This woman, the American who wrote about girls, the series. She speaks about her sexual life. It's a big revolution. When you read about Simone, she was talking about the sexual life of women. So, and the second thing I read, still in Elle, which is a great magazine, very interesting, and that's women who don't want to have kids. When you're a woman, me, I have kids. I don't judge women who don't want to have kids, but I can understand how it's annoying when you're a woman and you do not want to have kids. And always the same question when you get married. So when the kids when it will be, c'est pour quand? When the kids, that people never ask this question to a man. But when you're a woman, you have always to justify yourself because you do not want kids. I don't judge. Maybe it's good, it's not good, but why always? Because you're a woman, you have to justify. Because this is what Simone explained in a book, That's why she's very, very modern. Not only, and she was talking about another taboo, abortion, which is a very modern subject now when you see what happened in the States or everywhere in the world. So that's why I think Simone is really, the icon of a French woman.
How do you think she would have reacted to social media? Do you think she would have been a queen of social media today if she were around today?
Yeah, I think so. Her nickname was Beaver. So, yes. Yeah, I know. Don't laugh. No, it's because
she was a workaholic?
No.
Beauvoir
in English sounds beaver.
Oh.
Le castor, beaver. Because they say when you have many people, bands of people, and they're constructive. Because I have to say something important. She had the agrégation of philosophy, which is very, very, very difficult. And all the people say she was second when Sartre was the first agrégation. But people never say Sartre failed once. She did succeed for the first time. She never failed. She had agrégation first time. Okay, she was maybe second, but Sartre failed before.
Now, an agrégation is a high level to be able to teach philosophy in France. That's the teaching level, right? To be a professor.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's extremely, extremely difficult. And she would have used the Twitter and everything. I think, I'm not her, I cannot tell, but to use as a weapon for women all over the world. I think she was very involved in to protect the woman. All women.
Now, she was a prolific writer. She wrote, I don't know how many works. But if someone were to start, apart from reading The Second Sex, which is fairly full on, is there another work by Simone that you would recommend for someone to kind of get inside her psyche and see a little bit more about how she sees the world?
So maybe her memoir, Mémoire d'une jeune fille rangée. It's interesting because she was de Beauvoir. She did belong to a bourgeoisie, very well off, and after she had problem with money, and she decided to escape from a background to do something and to show she was free, meaning you don't have to be prisoner of your background, you have to be free. That's why it's very important. And I'm sure she would have used Facebook and maybe with the nickname Simone the Beaver or something like this. Simone le Castor. Because she had humor, she was funny.
Was she funny?
Well, the problem that the French were very intimidating, but fortunately the American lover, Nelson, was funny and he was making fun of her. So because French were too intimidating, she was a bit cold, a bit not very, you wouldn't say, hey Simone, how are you, my buddy. No, she was very strict. But I think she liked that, laughing like any woman, anybody. Yeah?
And she had a very particular style to her. When I think of Simone de Beauvoir, I think of this woman with a very charismatic face with a scarf wrapped around her head. She often had her head covered.
Yes, she was. That was a style. And she was, she was feminist and feminine, which is important. And you have to think that when she wrote a book, she was 39 years old. And at this time, in the 50s, it was like now she was 70 or 80 years old, So she said, no, I'm a lively, I'm still good looking, and I want to have lovers and a free life.
And she died in 1986, is that right, in Paris? And she has an adoptive daughter, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And she was really a Parisian. Sartre and Beauvoir, two native and Parisian. They were born both. He was born in Paris. She died in Paris. She said, I belongs to Paris. That's why she couldn't go to Chicago where she didn't know anyone.
The classic Paris icon.
Yeah, the Parisian and the world icon, I would say. I think everybody... There are two Simone that French women know. Simone de Beauvoir and Simone Veil. Not the philosopher, but the political woman. When people ask to the French, which French woman do you prefer? Always Simone Veil. But Simone Veil, who legalized abortion in 1974, did it thanks to women like Simone de Beauvoir. The two Simone, les deux Simone.